Welcome to The American Story. We are grateful to all of you for tuning in each week and sharing these stories with family, friends, and neighbors. And we're grateful for your generous support. Thanks to you, at year's end, we will have 129 evergreen episodes, a collection of stories about the things that make America the country we know and love. We will release our final episode on December 28. I hope each story contains some beautiful truth about our country that is worth hearing again and again. This is Chris Flannery with the Claremont Institute. I call this one Days to Remember. On December 15, 1791, a historic revolutionary and constitutional deliberation was, for the moment, concluded. It extended from the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia in the summer of 1787, through the ratifying conventions of 13 states from the fall of 1787 to the summer of 1788, to the first Congress of the United States of America under a new Constitution, and the legislatures of all the states under that Constitution. At every stage of these deliberations, representatives of the self-governing people debated with one another in elected bodies with varying legal authority. A free press carried on a robust public debate in pamphlets and newspapers, and the constitutional statesmanship of James Madison was active on all fronts, seeking to bring wisdom to consent. Among many days worthy of remembrance, one that is often forgotten is June 8, 1789, when, as a member of the House of Representatives in the first Congress under the newly ratified Constitution, Madison addressed the House in a historic speech. The government had been operating for only a few months. Only 11 of the 13 states that had fought in the Revolutionary War were represented in it. Rhode Island and North Carolina still had not ratified the Constitution. Several states had submitted proposed amendments to the Constitution with their vote for ratification, trusting that the first Congress would consider these proposed amendments. Madison thought it was the duty of Congress to take these proposed amendments into consideration, and he selected from them several that he himself could support that did not, in his view, blemish in any way the beauty of the Constitution, that would be likely to be approved, and would demonstrate to some doubting citizens that they should support the new government. He observed that many respectable Americans were worried about the power of the newly created government and wished to have some explicit affirmations of their rights, as was a familiar practice in many of the state constitutions. He reasoned that we ought not to disregard the inclinations of these citizens, but on principles of amity and moderation, conform to their wishes and expressly declare the great rights of mankind secured under this Constitution. Such a declaration would be perfectly in harmony with the principles of the Revolution that animated the Constitution. He added that an even stronger motive for declaring these rights explicitly was that this should help persuade Rhode Island and North Carolina to join the other 11 states in what he called the Confederacy. According to the still very new Constitution, Madison's proposed amendments would have to be approved by 2/3 of both houses of Congress and then by 3/4 of the legislatures of the states who were part of the United States. With some important exceptions historians like to point out, the House of Representatives largely accepted Madison's proposals and shaped them into 17 amendments, which the required 2/3 of the House approved. One of the exceptions, which had great consequences, was that the House decided to add these amendments on at the end of the Constitution, rather than engraft them into the document as Madison had proposed. 2/3 of the Senate approved 12 of the 17 amendments approved by the House, and by a joint resolution of Congress, these 12 amendments were submitted to the states for ratification on September 25, 1789. It is the original of this joint resolution that now joins the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution in the Rotunda of the Charters of Freedom at the National Archives Museum in Washington, D.C. When these amendments were submitted to the states, Rhode Island and North Carolina had still not yet ratified the Constitution, so only 9 states were needed to ratify the amendments. 2 years later, by December 15, 1791, Rhode Island and North Carolina had joined the Confederacy, and Vermont had become the 14th state. So when Virginia became the 11th state to ratify 10 of the 12 proposed amendments, they became part of the Constitution. Not until the early 20th century did it become common to refer to these 10 amendments as the Bill of Rights. But on November 27, 1941, in response to a joint resolution of Congress, President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued a proclamation designating the forthcoming December 15th Bill of Rights Day. This would be the 150th anniversary of the day to be commemorated, December 15th, 1791. And the President called upon officials of the government to display the flag of the United States on all government buildings on that day, and invite the people of the United States to observe the day with appropriate ceremonies and prayer. Between Roosevelt's late November proclamation and his radio address on December 15th, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, and Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy declared war on the United States. His radio address was titled Address of the President, broadcast in connection with the celebration of the 150th anniversary of the adoption of the Bill of Rights. But it was now a wartime address, rallying all liberty-loving people in the world against Germany, Italy, and Japan, whose purpose, he said, was precisely the destruction of the rights declared in that document. In the first sentence of his Bill of Rights Day radio address, Roosevelt said, "No date in the long history of freedom means more to liberty-loving men in all liberty-loving countries than the 15th day of December, 1791. James Madison would appreciate the sentiment, but recommend July 4th, 1776, and September 17th, 1787. He would be too modest to include June 8th, 1789. Thanks for being part of the American Story. This is Chris Flannery with the Claremont Institute. Visit our website at theamericanstorypodcast.org to learn more about these stories and how you might support the important work of the Claremont Institute.